The Dragon Ball series. A series I have loved ever since I was but a small child. Anything with this much fighting and explosions caught my attention very easily. But as I got older, my standards for things that I watched began to take a different turn. For as long as the Dragon Ball series has been running, I have noticed that the humans have really had it not so great. And that's just putting it lightly. I mean, these guys are literally just there to be fodder. And as a human, I kind of feel, well, not so happy about this. And I can't shoot Ki Blast or pull off superhuman feats like they can. In the rant, I am going to be going over how the humans, well, more or less Krillin, have been getting the shaft the entire series. It's been a while since I have watched the original Dragon Ball, but there are a few things I remember. I'm not going to say much, but the biggest point of this part of the series was the power difference between Goku and Krillin. They both started out pretty decent, but then the power gap began to get larger and larger, with Goku being the one to surpass Krillin. Big surprise, right? This gap, however, became surprisingly unnoticeable when they fought again as teenagers in the World's Martial Arts Tournament. But of course, Goku ended up pulling some insane speed out against Krillin and knocking him out. Okay, so Krillin lost fair and square. That's not a problem itself, but it's only the beginning of the long history of getting the shaft. Fast forwarding to the Saiyan arc. That moment right where Raditz attacks Kame House. Now this particular character was pretty strong, even taking a huge blast from Piccolo, claiming the blast from Piccolo only singed some of his leg hairs. So it was no surprise that Krillin would also not stand much of a chance against him. But here's something that triggers the Krillin getting the shaft feature that commences throughout the entire series. The bastard Saiyan decides that he only needed his tail to smack Krillin away, like a fly. Didn't even think he was worth a punch. I mean, yeah, Goku went down with one attack, but a knee to the gut from Raditz and his horse legs sent him from the ground, writhing in pain even. But Krillin got owned by someone's weakness. Now we have the Ginyu Force section of this rant. We have a Vegeta vs. Recoome fight, and sure enough, Recoome was very strong, even giving Vegeta a beatdown of a hard time. But keep in mind, Vegeta as well as Gohan took multiple hits from Recoome without going down, particularly Vegeta. But then we have Krillin, who was down in, this may be no surprise, one hit. One hit. And it didn't even look like he put much force into the kick. It was almost the equivalent of a muscle reflex. Krillin even ends up admitting his own uselessness around the time Goku shows back up. It must never be easy to tell someone you're a letdown, and you know it. Now, we do have a small fight with Gohan and Krillin versus Ginyu, who had switch bodies with Goku. And frankly, they actually did pretty good, although that's mainly because Ginyu didn't quite know how to use Goku's power, and it was 2 against 1. Anyway, the list goes on. On to the Frieza part of this arc. So Krillin and Gohan are pretty much on the sidelines for the Vegeta vs. First Form Frieza fight, but eventually Frieza transforms and targets Krillin, literally impaling him through the abdomen and torturing him continuously, and then tossing him aside like garbage. So tortured and disrespected. Just keeps getting better for poor Krillin, huh? Dende eventually comes to revive Krillin though, and Krillin magically begins to show some prowess by launching several Destructo Discs at Frieza, causing him to frantically dodge in an attempt to not be diced by the discs. And surprisingly, Krillin even manages to cut off Frieza's tail, which ultimately ended up being useless because when Frieza went to his final form, the tail ended up growing back. Although I will give him props, cutting off Frieza's tail isn't particularly an easy feat. Now let's skip ahead to after Goku hits Frieza with the Spirit Bomb. Everything is all fine and hunky-dory until they see that Frieza is in fact still alive. He shoots Piccolo down and turns his sight towards Krillin because, you know, forget the guy that just threw the Spirit Bomb at you. Anyway, he uses a Psychic type attack to shoot Krillin into the air and explodes him. Once again, that makes sense that he will be killed. I mean, Goku himself barely stood a chance against Frieza. However, here is where we have a sudden realization. Goku then proceeds to turn Super Saiyan over the death of Krillin. Had it not been for this overrated, powerful form, Goku would more than likely have not triumphed in battle. So this is the part where you probably go, oh, well, Krillin had some use after all. Well, that's just it. Krillin was most useful after he died. Isn't it lovely when you have a bigger impact on the situation when you are literally unable to help do anything anymore? Once again hitting that almighty fast forward switch to the Android arc. Not much of him fighting here, but he shows the loving personality of his when he decides not to kill Android 16 and 18, well, mainly just 18, and telling her to run away. Now, I'm not saying that it would have been great if he deactivated 18. I'm not saying that at all. However, it would have technically been good for humanity. He was part of the reason Cell reached his perfect form. Make no mistake, that darn Vegeta was still mostly to blame for that as well, but I digress. Moving on. After Cell reaches his perfect form, Krillin attempts to take revenge by attacking Cell and literally doing nothing. He also throws a Destructo Disc and practically bounces off of Cell. One of the strongest moves in DBC history was reduced to a harmless little light show. Isn't that lovely? On a related topic, you know when you think you have a special talent that you think no one else can take from you? That cool little thing that screams, "This is mine. This was made by me." Makes you feel really good inside. But what's this? Everyone and their pet cat started copying the move. Interesting how someone who's looked down upon all the time seems to have made a move that several stronger villains have tried to make their own. That's actually quite a flattering statement. Until you realize that now there's pretty much nothing that makes you special anymore, except being bald and short. Now, not much is going on in the Majin Buu arc besides him getting turned into stone momentarily by Dabura, putting up 2 futile fights with Buu, and getting turned into chocolate. With that being said, we're going to go straight into the Super Series. There are a couple more things I can talk about between here and the tournament arc, but I think just for the sake of keeping this simple, I'm going to go straight to the Universal Survival Tournament part of this arc. Now, here's where I develop my theory, but we'll come to that shortly. We have a really interesting moment here. When the Tournament of Power arc comes, we see that Krillin has actually been training, managing to win against Gohan using skill. Yeah, that's right, winning using something other than pure power. Most of you are probably not quite used to seeing something like that, since most of the fan base is so obsessed with power scaling. Next, he ends up sparring with Goku. Actually, let me stop there for a second. It's gotten to the point where everyone at this point probably started laughing their ass off. Yep, that's how bad Krillin has it, folks. The minute he enters the battle, he's one step away from being a Yamcha joke. It's sad how such a beautiful memory-inducing moment was almost laughed out of the door because the power gap was so ridiculously long that people just automatically placed all their wages on Goku. Then again, at this point, there aren't many people who actually are a match for Goku on Earth, except for Vegeta and, I guess, 17. Anyway, the battle proceeds, and Krillin is actually doing pretty well. Naturally, all the DBZ fans, or as people call them, Goku-tards, instantly say, "Oh, Goku's holding back, he's not using much power, blah blah blah." You don't say! No, of course not. We all just thought Krillin somehow found god powers from doing absolutely nothing but being a cop. I mean, because that's the thing, right? Duh, people, we knew Goku was holding back. You don't have to ruin the moment. So Goku turned Super Saiyan Blue to see how much power Krillin can push out, and it was pretty decent, but still naturally paled in comparison. Interestingly though, it turns out that Krillin supposedly had many new techniques that he still had hidden. Notice how I said supposedly. After seeing that, I finally had hope again. For a bright and shiny few seconds, I actually thought this could be the perfect chance for the creator to finally make a cool little human earthling power-up of some sort, maybe some kind of cool looking transformation. We'll come back to how my disappointment only skyrocketed a little further down the series. I also want to stop it here for a second again and discuss something else that pops into mind. So Majin Buu falls asleep again. Yeah, nice going, creator. Ha ha ha. And they need a 10th member for their team. They scramble to think of some characters and fail to do so. Then Beerus throws a small hissy fit and says, "Isn't there anyone else strong enough on this snot of a planet?" Oh, you're mad because you can't find any more strong people? Gee, that's a real shame. I mean, you have Whis training 2 Saiyans you seem to be obsessed with. You ever think that maybe if he trained a couple other people on your planet, you'd actually have more strong people to fight with? But who am I kidding? You're not strong by DBZ standards unless you're a Saiyan, or some random alien the creator decides to ride at the moment. So yeah, you can bitch that you can't find any strong people, but it doesn't help that you sit there and eat and sleep all day when you could be training people in your universe to raise your mortal level. And now for the biggest middle finger to Krillin fans everywhere. So Krillin is literally frozen in fear for the beginning of the tournament, which didn't catch me by surprise in the slightest, but I still had my hopes up for him getting some kind of cool new power-up. Again, don't laugh at my ignorance. So this bird fellow attacks, and Krillin responds by throwing a Destructo Disc at his wing, but he didn't quite knock off the enemy. Roshi was the one who delivered the Kamehameha to send him over the edge. Then there was also Celzus, who is colliding with 18. Long story short, he catches her off guard and nearly knocks her out the ring until Krillin jumps up to the rescue to save her. Now, any grateful spouse would probably be, well, very grateful to their spouse for rescuing them from getting eliminated from a vital tournament. Wait for it. So anyway, after Android 18 eliminates Celzus, Majora attacks 18 by catching her off guard again and proceeds to attack Krillin. Krillin tries to pull one of his new attacks, which fails miserably because Majora is blind. He resorts to using his stinky shoe to catch Majora off guard and blasting him with the Kamehameha to eliminate him. Krillin's only true knockout in this tournament. So then, the worst thing that could possibly happen to him happens. Frost sneaks up behind him and tail whips him off the stage. Yep, owned by a tail again. What better way to end him none other than the way he got owned first in the DBZ series. And naturally, that jerk Beerus, who couldn't even bother to memorize Krillin's name and still mispronounces it, gets angry at him. And to be honest, I could see how. So Krillin gets knocked off first, because who didn't see that coming? Didn't help that the beginning of the next episode, he got bad-mouthed by his wife, the one he saved, and the stepbrother I thought he was making a connection with. Oh, and here's something else. Notice how in their previous encounter, Champa and Beerus had a literal fight over Earth. When all else passed, they ended up wishing back the destroyed Earth of Universe 6. And you mean to tell me that there wasn't one human fighter from that universe that could have been helpful? Not one? That stupid boar character they tossed in who did absolutely nothing but get shot and knocked off. Come now, this is just ridiculous. This would have been the perfect time to use that human in the tournament. Then again, they would probably just be another weak fodder just like the ones in Universe 7. At this point, I am ready to strangle Toei. Speaking of which, it's time for that theory of mine. I believe the creators get some kind of sexual thrill out of disappointing the Krillin fans, maybe even the human fans in general. And my theory is correct. I guarantee Toei got to smoke a cigarette after that one, maybe even a whole pack. All that talk about new techniques only to end with this disappointment? That's just lovely. This is precisely why the Earthlings have one of the lamest awakenings in Xenoverse 2, in my opinion. That awakening is absolute and utter garbage. First off, it's underwhelming as hell. Oh, Beerus, look out, that human on the fluffy cloud is going to attack you with a stick. Not to mention you lose the option to use your skills and ultimates. Wow, they couldn't even try to work on the Earthling awakening. I mean, Toei doesn't, so why should they? One of the biggest problems with the Earthlings is that the fan base doesn't want them to be strong. They are so worried that someone other than the Saiyans will finally get some cool new forms to rival their already 1,000 forms that they already have. They are basically brainwashed into thinking that they can't get any stronger, when in reality they won't get any stronger simply because the creator won't allow them to get stronger. Now, I don't think the humans are bad characters, and I'm not saying the Saiyans are bad characters either. Overrated? Yes, but not bad. Not to mention Krillin is also not an unlikable character. He has a nice personality that I wish many other characters had, but the fan base don't seem to care about personality. As long as it can rage out and destroy things, it's cool with them. Then sometimes I think maybe it's my own fault. Perhaps I'm in the wrong anime. My expectations for the humans in general are too high for this show. P.S. The reason I didn't include Yamcha, Tien, and Roshi are as follows. I was recently informed that, sadly, Yamcha is supposedly stated to be a joke character, which is kind of upsetting, but, you know, whatever. Tien has also been long debated to be non-human, so I'm not really going to go into that. But if he is technically human, then I'd say most, if not all, this stuff also applies to him as well. And then Roshi, Roshi has always had his moments. He even got quite a few badass moments in the Tournament of Power, even getting Beerus' respect like twice, and that's not an easy feat to pull off. Krillin has also had a few moments as well, but a few measly moments do not really condone an entire life of failure. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Do you think my standards are too high for this, or do you really think maybe they should get at least a few of the other characters around or at least below God tier before the end of the series? Anyway, I'm Jack, and I thank you for watching. Stay frosty, my demons.